Hey, welcome in. Well, I've got a headline here. UBC, that's the University of British Columbia, apologizes after document on, get this, yellow privilege sent to students. Yellow privilege. So you got white privilege, now there's yellow privilege. And I guess the leftist, critical race theory types feel that East Asian people are doing a little too well. And you really can't have that. It seems that they think that East Asian people spend too much time being productive and being successful than they do, I guess, rioting, or carrying placards around and complaining. Anyway, we have a quote here from a UBC official who has since responded to, once people found out that they were sending this out to people, he says, "We sincerely apologize for this communication and its impact, in particular to members of our Asian communities." So we have here, I'll show you what they sent out. Here's a card. It says, yellow privilege. What is yellow privilege? I tell you, the more I see of these leftists, these crazy leftists, the more they seem like the people who wrote the Nuremberg laws. At this point, I'm not really sure what the difference is. Anyway, it says one definition is yellow privilege is comprised of very real advantages to East Asians, such as protections under criminal law. This was from somebody, Chang, from 2016. Now, in Canada, everybody has equal protections under criminal law. Everybody has the same protections. Anyway, it says an interesting observation by Chang is that as East Asians, our privilege is based on the status of being oppressed, but also being the oppressors. So this card is written by somebody from East Asian heritage, and I guess they want to lecture other East Asian people that they should be more oppressed, I think. I think he's opposed to them not being oppressed enough. He wants them to be repressed more, I guess. But anyway, this doesn't really make any sense. Oppressed, but also the oppressor. Only in this new leftist ideology can you have these kinds of ridiculous, nonsensical sentences, and they're just treated as this is all totally rational. Let's see, their privilege is based on the status of being oppressed, but also being the oppressor. That's their privilege. None of this makes any sense. Anyway, it says, how does that work? We can look at the minority model to better understand these dynamics. So let's go to the next one. A definition of model minority, a stereotype based on East Asians that perpetuated an idea by which Asians are hardworking or smart and are successful from our innate talents. It's shaped how we view ourselves as the Asian community and of other minorities. So these are terrible things here. Hardworking and smart, successful. We know the left doesn't like that. I don't know, since when were these sorts of things not something to be proud of? Obviously there is a kind of a cultural norm towards, conscientiousness, smart. That just means well-educated, taking education seriously. And those things do make you successful. They do. This is a very inconvenient thing for the far left, which is really rooted in Marxism, right? Where everything is just a zero-sum game. If you live in this zero-sum world where one person's gain is always, and it must be another person's loss, where every single human interaction is some sort of act of oppression, then this is how you have to think. Hard work, smart, these have to be bad things because they result in unequal outcomes. Because as we all know, equality of opportunity isn't enough. Everybody has to end up at the exact same place. And people being hardworking and smart tends to get in the way of that. It's just, oppressors and oppressed. It's a really miserable and very delusional view of the world. And it's, in my opinion, just completely, utterly anti-human. But anyway, I guess so we've established here with that model minority that being hardworking and smart are bad things, right? Anyway, we've got an example here of some privilege. It says much of the limited literature on Asian Americans and the criminal law emphasizes that Asian Americans are adversely impacted in the criminal law by attributions of the model minority myth and perpetual foreigner yellow peril stereotypes. And that is a terrible sentence. One thing you notice about all this kind of crazy critical theory stuff is they're terrible writers. I think most of the time they're not actually trying to express anything. They're just trying to obscure their goals in bad language. But anyway, this is an example of how in law East Asians are oppressed. It says, for example, Rodi Yen argued that Wayne Lo, a Chinese American who committed a mass shooting in 1992, was typecast as a perfect model minority at trial, which made him treated just as if he had been white, and thus led to his race being a non-issue in jury selection, and B, impacted the viability of his insanity defense at trial by masking his actual mental instability with the stereotype of the model minority. So it appears that this person is arguing that, and this is kind of hard to unravel, but that this guy would have been oppressed because of his race, because he wasn't being judged on his race. So his race being a non-issue in jury selection. So I guess his race wasn't considered in the application of the law, which would seem to contradict the idea that there was discrimination happening. But anyway, and that impacted the viability of his insanity defense at trial because white people can't be insane. I know, I didn't write this. This is what's being sent out from the University of British Columbia, if you can believe it. And let's keep in mind this example is a guy who went on a mass shooting. So, maybe a bad example. Just going to interrupt for 1 second to say, if you like this content, subscribe so you can see more. Thanks a lot. Anyway, it says takeaways, questions to consider. What privileges am I aware that possess? Okay, I repeat, this was sent out by a university. What privileges am I aware that possess? Okay. What privileges do I currently possess, yet I am unaware of? How can I use this privilege to either give back or elevate those who are harmed by this form of privilege? Sounding familiar? Yeah, this sounds a lot like the white privilege things, right? Like those sensitivity training sessions. And, to be honest with you, this is utterly predictable because the nature of this kind of social Marxist dogma, it's extremely divisive, and it's entirely identitarian. It doesn't see individuals. It only sees groups. So, if you have a group that has cultural norms that tend to lead to success, which, I really can't see what's wrong with that. I mean, we used to think that was a good thing, right? People being successful was a good thing. But if your culture has that, it looks like yellow is the new white, according to these people. It's really about Marxism underneath. That's the foundation of all of this. And to see this it's not even surprising, actually. I mean, it's shocking to see this kind of garbage being put out by a university. True. But really, we should all have seen it coming. I mean, there was also a big thing with Harvard as well, where they were essentially denying students who should have been there because they were the wrong color. But, really, none of this should come as a surprise. Let's look at the resources here. Equity and Inclusion Office. Oh, that's great. Of course, everybody has to be the same. That's what equity is. Let's see. Oh, anti-racism support resources. Well, I would say with this kind of stuff going out, they've got their hands full. Let's see. UBC Social Justice Institute. And I'm sure they have just buckets full of poison for everybody who gets too near to them. Anyway, this is insane. But I will just end this off saying, regardless of your background, where you come from, what you look like, if you're hardworking and you're smart, you're going to be successful. The most important part of this is actually hardworking. Because, education doesn't necessarily make you smart. I think we've all figured that out by now, haven't we? After all, I mean, this thing was sent out by somebody at a university. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. That really helps me out. If you just like to listen, there's the podcast, Radio Baloney. It's on pretty much every platform, including iTunes. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next time.